everyone. I'm Hugo.
I'm Jake. It smells like a fart.
I don't know
There's
what...
a fart. There's a fart smell.
Nowhere.
And it's like a phantom.
Anyway,
Right.
What a great intro, by the way. Welcome to the classiest show on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is Ask Hugo. I forgot the number. It's the fart's fault. So we're just going to go ahead and answer some of these questions.
Yep.
Professionalism is the name of the game here.
There you go.
Here we go.
We're Kitty. Dear Hugo, I too grew up religious, starting off as an only going during Easter and Christmas type Christian to a going every weekend and youth group when my mom became born again. There's lots of quotes here. When I was a teen. Although I do feel I have become an atheist, actually saying it out aloud has been surprisingly difficult and I'm unsure why. Did you ever have this feeling while you realized you were an atheist? How did you finally break the final chain of Christianity and be proudly atheist? Sorry, I don't really have a question for you, Jake. Cheers. Well, that's fine, because I would just be like, just fucking do it. Which is not helpful.
I think what you're experiencing is fairly common, and I think it comes as a part of sort of a deconstruction of the identity you had as a Christian. And that's an understandable thing to go through. It can make up so much of sort of your beliefs and your map of what reality is. So once you finally break that belief system, it can sort of take away part of, like, how you see the world. It's sort of a weird place where you have to recombobulate, you know what I mean?
Recombobulate.
Yeah. So I would just say it's a thing that comes with time, and as you become more comfortable and explore the world in a more naturalistic sense, and you sort of remap your worldview and your values to reflect that, and as you become more comfortable with your worldview and values, you'll become more valuable with that label and that identity as a whole. So, you know, as you get more competent, you become more confident in that role, I think.
It rhymes, so it's got to be true. Also, in the religious community, regardless of who it is, if it's an actually religious community,
sure.
Being an atheist is a very demonized title.
Yeah.
It's very bad. It's kind of like when, I don't know, it's akin to saying out loud and admitting I am an alcoholic, right? It's not actually as bad, but in that community, it is seen as a
character flaw.
Yeah, it's like a red A, which is why those are popular. But yeah, so I would understand, and also there's this idea of pariahship that comes with being an atheist, even from my standpoint. Like, there's some people that just can't deal with it, which is fine. They don't really care. But you might, since you actually have people in the community. So I can understand why, I don't know, why out loud, even if it's just to yourself, admitting it can feel dirty in a way, even though and I know that from what you're saying, you clearly don't think it is dirty, but it's just been kind of drilled into your head. So it's just kind of, it's going to have to be like a slow process. And I wouldn't worry about calling yourself anything. Sure. You don't have to be an atheist to be one. If that makes sense. You don't have to outwardly express yourself in any certain way at all.
Sure.
It kind of comes, it's the same thing with, although to a much lesser degree, like what's male or female. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, if Hugo wears a dress, he's still a dude. You know what I mean? He still identifies as a man.
Sure.
So it's the same thing.
Also for reference, like, this is also a good opportunity to take those negative connotations and turn them into maybe positive ones for certain people. Once you do become more comfortable with that label, if that is something. Like, I don't necessarily call myself an atheist. I'd consider myself more of like a secular humanist. But, you know what I mean?
Atheist is kind of part of that.
Sure, it can be synonymous. So I think it can be a positive thing for those people who might look at that label as negative, and when you can be able to say, hey, I'm not religious actually, but I'm still, these are the things I do that are positive, and these are the views that I have that are positive. And you can hopefully, over time, if all of us do this a little bit, instead of that being sort of a negative connotation to that word, it can be more like, oh, that's just the thing you are. Great.
Also, there are groups in many areas around the country that a quick Google search will reveal, and you won't have to feel so alone. It'll be great. Also, our community is pretty good, actually. We curate it well, I think.
Sure.
Because we're like, hey, fuck you if you're an asshole, and then they leave.
Sure.
Yeah.
Link to the Discord in the comments.
There you go. Martin, dear Hugo and Jake, is it just me, or does it seem like marijuana is always demonized while cocaine is trivialized way more often than not on TV? I understand what he's saying a little bit. It's more, cocaine's kind of like the comedy drug.
See, I was going to disagree with this.
Really?
I completely disagree disagree. I've never seen... I want to know what shows he's watching where it's like...
Well, no, it's always like a rich white guy on a yacht, and he does bumps of cocaine, and he's kind of cool, but he's the bad guy.
It makes me
where we just like a loser.
It makes me think of that scene in Boogie Nights where that guy's doing fucking coke and listening to Jesse's Girl and shooting off a gun randomly, and Marky Mark's like, whoa, I just want to leave. Like, that's a comedy scene, but in like a... This guy's fucking crazy and on cocaine way.
Yeah, I mean...
I feel like marijuana's generally, even if it's looked at in a negative light... It's still generally a light negative, you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Like it's not like, oh, this guy's gonna bury his face in a pile of marijuana and shoot my family. No, it's
right. It's
okay.
Like, oh, haha, this guy's high. He's gonna eat a bunch of tacos, or like maybe he's lazy, or whatever.
I get that.
Whereas
I think maybe Martin smokes a lot of weed.
I get that impression.
Maybe he typed this while partaking.
Yeah.
In that substance.
Wasn't cocaine, not enough caps and not enough typos.
Yeah. I guess you changed my mind on that a little bit. I get it. I think marijuana is almost always a negative thing unless it's for comedy purposes, but even then it's kind of self-deprecating. You know what I mean? Like, is there a positive... Sometimes cocaine is just like, that's a status drug.
You know what? I think that's...
You get what I'm saying?
I'd put it very much in... marijuana when it's joked about or talked about on TV, often because I think writers for TV and stuff tend to be people who at least have partaken in marijuana in the past.
We all know what it does. We're all like, yeah, it kind of makes you not super productive.
Marijuana humor tends to be more self-deprecating, whereas cocaine humor tends to be more, look at this crazy motherfucker on cocaine.
Yeah.
Tends to be. I recognize that's not always the
But
case.
it's always a status drug. Yeah. Always. So, not like meth. Meth is not like that. Thick secret! Woo! Dear Hugo and Jake, have you been to Frankenmuth, Michigan? If so, what do you enjoy there? I have been to Frankenmuth. Have you been to Frankenmuth?
Of course I've been to Frankenmuth. I just wanted to bring this up because I want to bring up something about Frankenmuth. I guess I should explain Frankenmuth. Frankenmuth is...
You're saying so much, it means nothing to me now. It's it would be in the mother tongue, Frankenmuth. Do you want to say Frankenmuth?
I don't.
Try it just once.
Frankenmuth.
Pretty close.
Okay. It's a town near us here in Michigan, and it's sort of patterned itself after like a Bavarian as done by like It's a Small World by Disney, not authentic. You know what I mean? Like,
well, there were Bavarian immigrants that founded it.
Absolutely.
But what happened was
it's a kitschy tourist trap now.
No, well, it became that because those people found out they could make money from people that wanted to see that. So I mean. It's exploitative in a way that was definitely on purpose. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like our casinos.
No, it's like, it's kind of like a tacky Chinatown.
It's super tacky.
Except they're like Polish, you know what I mean?
It's super, super tacky. The food's okay, real salty.
I wanted to bring this up specifically.
Zenders?
Yes, because there's a goddamn restaurant in the town that everyone around, it's like, oh, you gotta go to Frankenmuth to get the Zenders and their fucking family chicken dinner. Their chicken's fucking garbage. It's bland.
Yeah.
It's trash food. Stop going to Zenders. They don't deserve it. The homemade noodles they do, pretty good. But that is fucking it. Stop going to Zenders.
They have the world's largest Christmas store.
Been in there. Disappointed.
It's a Christmas store. If you like Christmas, you like that place.
I don't believe that's the world's largest Christmas store. I don't fucking believe it.
It's pretty fucking big.
I don't feel like it's that big for a Christmas store.
It's only Christmas stuff and it's humongous.
I don't feel like it's...
No, but because no one else is like, we should get bigger. They're like, no, that's plenty.
I'm not... By the way, that building, the Bronner's, the world's largest Christmas store, as they call themselves, that building is dedicated to God.
Yeah, I know. They're very religious. Can you believe the world's largest Christmas store is religious?
I've never seen a building dedicated to God. It's a little redundant, don't you think? He made the shit it's made out of if you think he's real, right? I dedicate this I kind of made the planet it's sitting on. That's not that impressive. Anyway.
Thanks. But yeah, they're open like 363 days a year, something like 361.
Yeah.
They're closed for Christmas, Easter.
New Year's, maybe?
Other Jesus stuff. There's other ones out there, I'm sure. Passover.
They're not closed for Jewish holidays, I guarantee.
They're closed for...
It's a Christmas store.
Hanukkah. Martin again, for some reason.
Oh, did I get two from the same one? I wasn't looking at names.
This guy's high. Dear Hugo and the other guy, do you believe there might be a case for superheroes, i.e. Superman/Batman, etc., being bullies to random criminals? See, this guy's definitely high. He was watching Batman.
That's why it resonated with me, I guess. Anyway, this guy, absolutely. This is a conversation that's been happening for a long time. At the end of the day, superheroes are sort of a power fantasy. There's a reason we don't want actual costume people going out and fighting crime.
They do sometimes, and they get killed.
Vigilantes, not a great idea. Batman, you know, he's a fictional character. He has ideals. Human beings aren't like that. So,
well, also, I mean, it's not an original concept. We talked about this earlier today. The concept that they're not really good people.
No.
They're like, they think they're good.
Batman doesn't tackle the socio-economic roots of, like, crime.
Like
Bruce Wayne does a little bit. But, back in the past, he didn't.
Bruce Wayne, invest in education. Invest in healthcare. Maybe give the cops a little bit more money. And then you're good to go. But instead, you're punching folks.
Every time you buy a bat tank, how many underprivileged youths could that have bought an education?
And
that maybe...
to be fair, it's hard to be educated when penguin bombs blow up your orphanage.
I'm just saying, so would Joe Chill have shot your parents if he'd had a job? Probably not.
That's actually pretty fair. Yep.
Also, rich people, don't go into alleys. Not for you.
Do you remember that one time Batman got, universally befuddled that someone else had his mom's name?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
World's greatest detective. Why did you say that name?
Because...
My mom's name.
See, do you realize what they were doing there?
Because Batman and Superman's mom are both named Martha?
No. They did it with they did such a poor job of showing this in the movie. It took me reading about it to actually really understand
it's humanizing Superman.
No.
Okay, no?
What they were going for. Because Batman's murdery Batman in that movie.
Sure.
Right? What that moment did, and it was so poorly directed and written and edited that I didn't understand it. Batman became the person that created Batman. Oh. He became as bad as Joe Chill. He's killing that guy's mom by not help. You know what I mean? And it's so poorly done. It's like, that's a good concept, but it makes no sense in the film, right?
I get what you're saying. And there's probably even an insert shot, because I remember in that movie specifically, there's a, right before Martha actually gets killed, Thomas Wayne says Martha. So there's an insert shot of that.
They do it again. They replay it during this moment, and they go, Martha, but they don't show Joe Chill. And you
don't need to show Joe Chill. That's fine.
Well, no, but and they have these conversations with Alfred, and Alfred's like, "You're becoming what you're fighting" and stuff, but they don't nail it, so it just falls. This totally falls flat, and that's why that scene is hilarious, because it's so there's no reason, and what you had to do is I think you had to have another scene where the Martha thing comes up to really establish it halfway through the movie instead of just the beginning.
God, that movie's so many half-fucking ideas.
I know, but that's a good idea in general, right? It's a good idea that Batman becomes murdery, he becomes the villain, he's trying to fight, and then he finally realizes it. Yeah, I know, and he finally realizes that he's basically Joe Chill. That's a good idea. Fuck that movie. Boop. Cicero Soter. Dear Hugo and Jake, how do you deal with people being spoil sports or just outright assholes in D&D? For context, my best friend told me some time ago about a group he was playing with that constantly mocked his character for being a lawful good and very religious paladin. He said they would all second guess and chide all his choices, to the point that he ended up leaving the game after only a few sessions. Is this a common thing? I asked mostly because I was thinking of getting into tabletop RPGs, and this story made me seriously reconsider if that is a good idea. Thanks for the answer if you give it, and sorry for any spelling and grammar mistakes. I am stupid. I like they're cutting me off at the pass.
Yeah.
Right now? Because fuck you!
We fostered an abusive relationship where they're already apologizing before they even do anything wrong. Perfect.
Who was it? That Australian comedian was like, comedy design, it needs tension to exist.
She just did Nanette on Netflix. That was really great.
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but it is really good. This is the tension that we're talking about. The tension of you maybe fucking up and Papa Jake seeing it, because I used to grade papers. So yeah, so the question is, I guess,
Yeah,
is
D&D.
are RPG tables mostly assholes?
You would have... I picked this specifically because I know you have a larger perspective on this than I do. I've only been at the one table. You've
Sure.
been at multiple tables. Go ahead. I don't know.
No, not most people are assholes. See, as the people... Usually you play with friends, right? Are your friends assholes?
But here's the thing, too. You didn't describe a ton, like... It makes sense in character for certain characters to
Sure.
make fun of other characters. That happens in D&D.
Right. If
There's
you
character dynamics
if you
going
can't
on.
handle a character being made fun of, then like probably just don't play because it's your fault.
But if they're relentlessly just being a dick to your friend's character, that's super odd. It's odd to me that they would pick out a specific person and just pick on them. I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
It
People
seems
do that
like
shit, but...
this story has one of two actual realities. One is they're just huge assholes that it was a personal thing between like them really not probably liking and ganging up on this one person in real life and not at the table. And number two is your friend's very sensitive. It could be both. It could be neither. But it's probably at least one of those. And so in my experience, there will be high charisma characters, although Paladin would be high charisma. It doesn't matter. There's some high charisma characters that will do that, and then kind of part of their arc, because it's a cooperative storytelling, is they become softer on people and they start respecting. And the fact that they only played a few sessions, most people don't play as much as us. Sure. That's roughly, maybe at best, between 6 and 8 hours at the table with these people.
Sure.
I don't think that's enough to really get it.
And develop the character.
So I think it's important to have a thick skin in life in general. But when you're sitting at a table, it's about your character. And like, if you want to talk to those people privately, if you have a problem, like, hey guys, are we good? And they're like, yeah, we're just fucking around. Yeah. Like, it's just a game. Then accept it. But let them know that, like, you know, that's like, it's pissing you off. And they might say there's a roleplay reason. Don't worry, it's not going to last forever. Sure. Call that character out if it's really bugging you. Like, I have a character, Molus, who is a warlock. He's ridiculously charismatic. He was a former politician in training. Sure. And so he'd always been told that, like, because he's a Triton, which is basically just a mer person. He lived under the sea. He was told that people on the surface are basically worthless. They're not as strong. They die a lot. They have wars over fickle things. They're very frail. They'd live for like no time whatsoever.
Very Submariner.
Yeah, well, that's kind of. I went off the. I forgot I was going to be in that game and made him in 45 minutes. So I just went off what the Triton race thing said.
King of the Sea. I
get
it.
Well, over time he's changed, but a couple of players were mad at me once because they totally changed the plan that we had, and they got like caught in a really bad spot and we had to go save them. Yeah. And so my character was like, what the fuck are you doing? And they got actually mad at me. And I was like, just calm down, call them out, do an insight check next session or whatever. And basically the whole thing was like, because Molus thought he was in charge because he had to be, because he's like top dog alpha. Sure. You know, he's don't white genocide me. He's a little racist, but in a way he doesn't realize he's racist.
He's an ignorant.
He's coddling.
Racist.
He's very ignorant of other people. So anyway, basically they insight checked him, and I failed, and it was basically like he lost kids in the mall.
Sure.
And that's what I was trying to explain, and then it was cool, and ever since we've been fine. So like sometimes your character might have to be an asshole. It's not a big deal.
Again, stories are sort of predicated on tension. It's kind of a boring story if everyone gets along.
It's also a boring story if we just share our backstories. If we just have so yeah. If you're interested in role playing, we talk about this a lot. We can go for hours talking about this because we're into it. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about people being assholes.
Generally, not a problem.
Except at these live events, sometimes people are assholes. So just be careful. Like if it's a group of friends that you trust, talk to them after the game if they upset you. But odds are it's probably not a thing they're trying to do. LaCroix Boy. That's like 6 episodes in a row from LaCroix Boy. Yeah, keep going. Dear Hugo and Jake, did you participate in Our Thanos Did Nothing Wrong? And if so, have you been banned to restore perfect balance, or do you get to watch the sunrise on a grateful subreddit? This is a you question.
Yeah, do you know what this is about?
Nope. Well, I mean, I assume it's a joke thread about the Infinity War. Spoilers for the Infinity War, possibly.
That's like saying spoilers for Empire Strikes Back like 3 months after that comes out. Okay, at a certain point, it's not on us.
It's not on us. I'm just letting them know.
Like
fuck you.
It was a cinematic fucking event. Fuck you. Anyway, so end of that movie. Thanos does the snap. Half the people disappear.
Yep.
Thanos did nothing wrong is a subreddit on Reddit, which just shares funny memes and stuff from the perspective of like, oh, Thanos is right, haha,
Yeah, okay.
So what they did as a joke was, what if we ban half the subreddit?
That's amazing. And
they did. And Josh Brolin was a part of it. They got in contact with him and they had him do a video where he actually did this. And I survived. I did not get banned. So it was just an algorithm that randomly, picked people. So
that's funny.
It was a fun little internet thing. You weren't part of it.
No.
That's okay. I'm not part of real life, though, so it evens out.
Yep. Eat my ass, like Hannibal Lecter asks. Dear Hugo and Jake.
Worth it for the name alone.
Yeah. Due to some... D-U-E, you big idiot. Due to some not great childhood experiences, well... No, I'm the asshole. I have some over-the-top reactions to certain things relating to alcohol. I can be around casual drinking, no problem, but very drunk people make me very, very uncomfortable, and the smell of some cheap liquors puts me super on edge. In high school, this wasn't really a problem. I would just avoid places I knew people would be drinking, but now in college, it's around much more, and my friends have almost completely stopped inviting me to things because of it. Even if the event will have very little drinking at it, how do I fix my social life and get friends to stop handling me with children's gloves? By the way, eat my ass like Hannibal Lecter. I hope you have never once, ever once, been like, fuck safe spaces. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying I hope if you did, you've reflected.
I'm going to be nice about this because I completely understand.
I understand as well. I very much identify with this.
I understand the anger about people drinking too much. I grew up with parents who were like that, so
Same.
I can understand a visceral sort of reaction to that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you can't control what other people do. You can only control your responses to that. And I am assuming that you didn't just say to your friends one day, hey, I'm not really, comfortable with like crazy drinking, and then they just stopped inviting you to everything for any reason.
No, I think you probably had a bad, you were like really frustrating to be around.
I assume you were and again, I understand where you're coming from.
I do too.
But it's your responsibility if you're not happy being around people who are drinking, or, in a party atmosphere, drinking to get drunk, which people in college do.
Yeah.
Then you should not be in those situations, and I think you recognize that, but you're also mad that you're not being invited to these things.
Well, they mention even if there's not drinking or very little.
It implies to me at some point maybe you overreacted. And
it implies the behavior on your end was so much so that they were like, just fuck it.
So,
could be wrong.
Could be wrong. If that is the case, though, I would recommend you maybe talk to those friends and be like, hey, I know I may be overreacted. I'm really sorry. And maybe explain why. Say,
explain it with these words that you just used. Like, hey, I had bad childhood experiences. You don't have to use the word triggered, but it does trigger you. And, and it has a bad connotation, but that's what's happening. I am not ashamed to say it triggers me when people abuse alcohol, especially when it's just at home.
Sure.
When it's just at home and around me, like if someone's just kind of off doing their own thing and they're alone, they haven't, it's just kind of their thing, it doesn't really bother me. But if it's around me or other people or people that are dependent on them specifically, like parents to children and stuff like that, or maybe they get drunk before they have to actually commute or something. I don't know. When you involve other people, that's really what bothers me. But in a party, it's never bothered me.
Right,
because that's kind of expected. It's socially expected.
That's the context in which that is appropriate.
Right, and even my alcoholic parents, when they were at parties and I was around, it didn't bother me because I expected it. It was and the people that weren't alcoholics were also getting drunk.
Sure.
I've been drunk at parties. It's not crazy. So yeah, I would consider how your reactions were, what the breaking point was in this relationship between you and your group of friends, because I bet if you look back on it, sure, maybe someone is in the wrong, but you're probably also in the wrong because humans don't take the information you just gave us and go, nah, fuck you.
Generally, no.
Generally.
Unless your friends are huge fucking assholes, in which case you're better
then
off.
fuck them and go get new friends because they're garbage and you're in college and fucking go have fun. There's definitely a group of people out there for you. Maybe a D&D group. Maybe one that smokes weed.
Also, there's plenty of people in college who don't drink a lot, too, so...
Yeah, like, I was a popular kid in high school. It was a small high school, so not toot my own horn that much. I just was kind of in the group where I could hang out with basically anybody, but I didn't get drunk at all those all the time, sure. And it wasn't that big a deal. Like, no one ever was like, hey, shot? No. And I was like, no, and they were like, you're fucking pussy. They're just like, okay, who cares? So,
most situations in which someone offers you a shot and you say no, generally, someone will be like, okay, because then they want the shot and they can drink it.
Yeah, or they'll hand it to somebody else. Whatever. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it so much. It's probably a thing if they're actually good friends, just talk to them. Miller Mania 88. Dear Hymen and Jelquing? I know what a Hymen is, but not a Jelquing.
I don't know.
You know what a Jelquing is?
Not just with you saying it. Let me see the spelling.
Jelqing?
Nope, not off the top of my head.
Okay, someone let me know what a Jelquing is. I have noticed that a lot of my classmates who are around 18 are claiming centrism to be the one true answer in politics. Do you think this is agree to disagree mentality is harmful to our democracy? I think they're idiots. They're 18, so obviously they're stupid.
That's fine. I understand that position, like, at that age. I think as you get older, though, I agree it can be harmful. It's one thing to say, okay, in any particular situation, we should take a moment, take a step back, examine both sides, and then make a determination.
Centrism that's not centrism.
No. But there are people who will then say, I'm a centrist, so any two positions between a Republican and a Democrat, it has to be somewhere in the middle, and that's just not the case. That's not the case.
So if someone has the opinion that killing a child with an axe is the proper course, and not killing a child with an axe is the proper course, the middle answer isn't cutting one of their arms off. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, we're not going to kill them, but we'll chop a little something off. That's not the answer. And now, that doesn't mean, that could be the left or the right. The right and left doesn't matter.
Sure.
If one of the positions is extreme, the answer is not to meet them in the middle.
A real world example would be like, if you were like a radical centrist centuries ago, you know, those abolitionists and those people who want to keep slaves, they both have good opinions.
What about indentured servitude, which is just slavery with a paycheck?
And again, I recognize not every issue is like this. Some things are more meat in the middle.
Some things can be meat in the middle, though, like gun control.
But what pisses me off is the general idea of both sides are the same.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. And if you say that, you are lazy and not paying attention.
Right. That's just the case. I mean, there's not really two ways about it. You can't say, oh, we should have universal health care versus we should have private. The middle ground there, what is that? Having universal health care and private? Because that's not really middle. That's still the universal health care winning.
And here's the thing, too.
You know what I mean?
You could even have a position on that, and I would respect a person who takes the position, no, I don't want any sort of universal health care. I would respect that opinion because at least it's like taking a concrete position on an issue.
And probably giving reasons to do it, and usually the reason is I don't want to pay for someone else's health care, which you are anyway. But still!
Oftentimes I've found people who say like, I don't know, both sides. It's people who don't want to actually examine issues and actually take a side.
See, the problem is a lot of centrists, and not all.
No.
Calm down. A lot of centrists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They just don't know. They're bad at politics, and that's fine. Just out loud say, I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm not very educated in the subject. Instead, you gotta drop your dick on something that doesn't deserve it and say, oh yeah, my opinion is they're both right. They're both wrong. They're both right and wrong. I don't know. Don't be that asshole. If you don't have an educated opinion on a thing, don't talk about it. And if someone asks your opinion on it, say, I don't have an educated opinion on it, but that's fine too. Like, if someone talks to me about, what's something I know nothing about?
Sausage casing.
I know a little bit about sausage casings.
Rubik's Cubes.
There you go. If someone's like, what do you think about the financial numbers on Rubik's Cubes? sales versus something else. I don't know.
You had me on the edge of the seat there, wondering what the other
sales versus
what the
demand.
What's the other axis of the graph gonna be?
Should we go with Rubik's cubes that are standard, or like those ones that have a bunch of things?
Sales over time. Sales over
no, not sales over time, because that's just a graph.
Oh, okay.
It has to be versus something. Like,
oh.
like is it immoral? Is it immoral to specifically target white communities with the Rubik's cube because they have more educational funding?
You clearly haven't seen the Will Smith movie, Pursuit of Happiness. All about Rubik's cubes.
Yeah.
And the plight of the black man.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, if you don't know, like I don't know what the Secretary of Treasury's name is.
Secretary of the Treasury right now?
Yep. No one knows. Not a thing. Not a thing. Maybe they're not even appointed, honestly, which is fucking sad. But, like, if they have a tax thing, I probably don't know what that's about until after I read about it.
Sure.
So if someone asks me about the thing, I don't know. I'm not going to say both are correct.
Yeah.
Like, that's important. It's important. So your dumb 18-year-old friends, they're just dumb. They're just dumb.
Fine.
And it's fine to be dumb, because you're 18. You're not a person for, like, 6 more years. Darth Maul, 322. Dear Hugo and Jake, for some reason my eyes saw Hugo and Mark for just a second. It's weird.
Oh man, if I could do this show with Mark Wahlberg, I don't know why I'm assuming of all the Marks, that's who.
No, I think Mark Hamill's available.
I don't think
he's got no more Star Wars to do, so.
Mark Hamill, I think, is a better person than me, and I don't deserve to sit next to him.
Maybe you can get replaced with Tom Hanks, and I can get replaced with Mark Hamill, and they can have success. Anyway, a question I've wanted to ask for a while as someone who is raised Christian but changed to atheist. For the most part, I don't think that's how that word works.
Agnostic. They might be talking about agnostic.
Okay, so on the spectrum, you're
sure.
Like a 6 on the Kinsey scale of atheism.
Wouldn't that be a 3?
No, 7 is hard atheist.
I think it's 6.
No, it's out of a 7.
Is it out of 7?
Oh, maybe.
Oh, okay.
If it's out of 6, it's a 6. Whatever. Fuck it.
7,
I thought there was a middle.
Because there is a middle.
I thought there was.
It's gotta
okay.
be out of 7.
So out of 7, and then so you're a 6. So you dabble.
Okay.
Maybe you got some Reiki crystals or some shit. I don't know what your life is. But I've often wondered, what would you say if you were to die and be wrong? Like God does exist, and you are standing before him in heaven, and he asked why you didn't believe, and what would you say? Oh, that's a... Whew, you got an hour and a half? Sure, let's do an hour and a half on this.
I think we've been asked this before. I don't have a lot to say. I could extrapolate. And like you said, I'm sure you could talk for a long time.
Now, I will say this is Pascal's wager, and it shouldn't be compelling at all, because it's garbage.
No, but it's a fun little
It's a good question. It is a good question. So I'm just saying, if this question makes you consider whether or not you ought to believe,
no,
you shouldn't say yes, because it doesn't matter.
Right.
But the question is interesting.
Sure. Mostly it would boil down to... If the litmus test for if there was a litmus test essentially for what is good and what is bad according to you, why was the evidence not apparent to me? That would be my question. Because at the end of the day, you're looking at your manufacturer and they're asking you why you're manufactured incorrectly, essentially.
Yeah.
So that would be my question.
Yeah.
If it was supposed to be evident, why wasn't it for me in this particular instance? It doesn't follow, you know what I mean?
Right. And not even that, like, why choose the time period to write that if it were true? Because obviously you're working with the God of the Bible, which is easily dismissed. If you just said God,
even if you're not, did they say specifically
God in heaven? So I assume it's either that or the Jewish one. It's probably the Jesus one because you were Christian.
Sure.
Right. So the idea. I think the question is harder if you say if you died and you found out there was a God. Sure. And it wasn't necessarily heaven, it was just a cosmic being that created us and everything. Now, in that situation, is there even sin or whatever?
Yeah. Which
is interesting. But let's just say it's a Christian God. Why choose the time period that you did to have a book poorly written and long-winded and contradictory that's not clear at all, and then have that interpreted by people that were corrupt enough, constantly and consistently, to fuck with the message and manipulate it however they saw fit to have the power that they wanted. Let's say with slaves, say with prosperity gospel now, say with, well, it's in politics right now, like anti-abortion and stuff, even though scientifically speaking, and science is objective, and it changes all the time, and that's why it's reliable, is because it can change its opinion. It can change, like, facts don't change necessarily, but how we are informed by them does. And so the fact that some people, you can get rid of a pregnancy with nothing bad, like it's just a fucking little zygote, like that kind of shit. Like why why do you consider me a sinner but not the rapist who is a Christian? Why do you consider anything that I like? Why are gays bad? They don't hurt anybody. Is it because they don't procreate? If two heterosexual people never procreate, are they equally sinful?
Now that we're sitting here thinking about this,
there's so many questions.
Can I add another question? I'd be like, why are we having this conversation? Don't you know what's going? This is like a
right. More of it is, why do you change your mind if you know everything? If you do know everything, then why is there even sin? If you do know every step everyone's going to take, sin is irrelevant. So is heaven or hell. Just make them not exist anymore and start them over. In fact, why do you even have reality when you could just have heaven?
What is the nature? Oh God, we could go into. Fucking...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, why is the universe? Why is the universe?
I'm gonna start on Jordan Peterson metaphysical bullshit. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no real answer, because once you get to a certain point with these lines of question, the answer is I wanted to. But why do you want to? You know everything that's gonna happen. There should be the perfect being has no wants.
This is why I like this question, because it kind of points out the absurdity of the entire situation. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And it's even just as a thought experiment, there could be evidence for this God existing, and it still wouldn't make sense. It still wouldn't make sense.
It would depend on the evidence. It would the internalized logic based as
That's
understand it would not make sense.
Right? Yeah, I'm saying it would make sense that the thing existed, but not how it acted.
As far as I understand it. Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, all the information we have about the personality of this supreme being is that it's fickle, but perfect.
Yeah.
How are those compatible in any way? The idea that Satan is allowed to be and allowed to act. Satan seems to have much more free will than God ever did. God is bound by the knowledge of the future.
He certainly does more interesting things, I'd argue.
That's what I'm saying. Or the fact that it had to be an analog situation that God just couldn't absolve sin for the whole universe.
The nature of reality, in a reality where a being is the supreme being, is a confusing reality, because that is a reality in any sense that is
indistinguishable.
It's indistinguishable essentially from the imagination of that being. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is.
If your will is exerted immediately by anything, and you can just do anything, essentially nothing is...
And
again, Jordan Peterson woo horse shit. Nothing is anything because you can do anything just by thinking about it. Everything is just your daydreaming. You know what I mean?
It kind of is. It kind of is. Well, if God exists...
Yeah.
If God exists, then...
then it's like that episode of The Twilight Zone where everything is that guy's dream, and when they execute him, everyone else dies.
Yeah, it really is. So, like, I mean, what is even the nature of reality if a thing created and knows all stuff?
Yeah.
If one thing... And also, how does that thing come to be? How does that thing even exist?
You know what I find interesting, actually? Western religions don't tackle this well because you have, sort of the monotheism going on. Some Eastern religions, I like how they tackle this idea of the nature of a supreme being, and I believe, I could be wrong. I don't even know which one specifically, but there's probably multiple that sort of fall into this category, but essentially, human souls are split off elements of the supreme being.
Sure.
And then once they die, they return to that. Almost like the Force from Star Wars, where, you know what I mean? I'm sorry if that's reductive to your fucking weird Eastern religion. But Western religions are just as weird.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Every soul is a part of this supreme being, and then they become people for whatever reason.
A little pantheist.
Yeah. It's still horseshit, but at least I can kind of... I don't know.
Right, but even so, how did that supreme being start? Yeah. And like
it's still not logical. I'm just saying internally, I think it has a more consistent logic than Western monotheism.
And someone may ask, well, then how did the universe start? I can get behind the math of the universe. The emptiness is unstable. I can get behind that. The math works on that. I've had it explained to me a few times. I still don't fully understand it because it's theoretical physics.
I don't know shit about it.
Well, so the
I know I've heard the
space
thing.
Right, so just for them, space devoid of anything, any particle whatsoever, dark matter, anything, becomes unstable to the point that it creates stuff. I don't know why. No one knows why. But it seems intuitive that because that math works, that's how Big Bangs happen. And also, the further you get away from this universe, another one could happen.
Sure.
Right. So I feel like just kind of the parameters of existence in general are mysterious enough. I don't think adding a deity on top of that simplifies it whatsoever. I think it makes it more complicated, especially when you involve the evidence we have to the contrary of everything the Genesis account talks about, as far as creation, especially the dates. And the time scale in which it takes place, just creation in general, evolution. I mean, there's just so much that doesn't add up to just the facts around us that it's an entirely untenable situation for me. It doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
And that's based on, like, I'm a layman when it comes to science.
Yeah.
Like, I do my best. I'm pretty educated in it, but, like, even for me, I can't possibly specialize in all the things necessary to really, like, cut that idea. Ooh, take that. To cut that idea, you know what I mean? Like I still have to keep on the table, although it's far away on the other side of the table in a little corner ready to be pushed off. I still have to, if I'm honest with my skepticism, I have to allow the possibility. And that's where it lives.
Sure.
That's where it lives for most people, even if they're religious. Like, that's almost going to tip over. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Neil deGrasse Tyson, many other people said it, but Neil deGrasse Tyson's been the one saying it more recently. The idea of God, the concept of God, lives in an ever-receding pocket of things we don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. But
most people who believe don't necessarily believe for those reasons in the first place.
I know they don't. I'm just saying, like, it's the God of the gaps. It just keeps getting pushed, and some people are just going to believe it regardless because it makes them feel good, and because they're told they're brainwashed to think that not believing in it, and kind of with the atheist guy earlier, it's bad to not be the thing.
We've talked about this in the Jordan Peterson series a little bit, and I think as this happens and the God of the Gaps thing closes and closes and closes, you're going to see more and more of this Jordan Peterson metaphysical thinking creeping into Christianity out of necessity, because as these gaps in knowledge recede, they have to essentially create gaps in knowledge.
No, they do.
With Deepak Chopra-esque metaphysical bullshit.
This is why I've been talking about Jordan Peterson with other people, and it feels like, although it's a little reductive because I don't think Christianity's ending anytime soon.
No.
It does feel like sort of the last gasps of, like, Americanized religion. You know what I mean? Like, the version we grew up with isn't going to be what we have in 50 years.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like they're kind of grasping at new ways to cram the idea in. New ways
to keep it relevant in society.
Right, because the conservative, and because the conservative mindset doesn't allow you to push forward in your thinking, you still have to put God somewhere in there, even if it's a metaphysical, conceptual version. And not necessarily a real one, but I mean, it's kind of a real one. So yeah, it's an interesting dilemma, I think. Yeah. So
I'm glad I picked that question. We went off in a fucking
well, I could talk about that shit for a long time. So I guess that's it for this one.
Yeah. You can always ask more questions for next time, either in the comments here or at the Discord, which I said earlier is in the description of this video.
Yeah.
All the questions for this were again from the Discord because it is so convenient to go there and get good questions.
Yeah. Hey, if anyone has an old computer tower they're not using, I'm looking. Just saying.
What are we using it for?
to stream D&D, friend.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Or a laptop, or just something you're not using. Not looking to spend a lot of money. In fact, I would love your donation, but I'll pay for it, or if you're not really willing to part with it for free, which I get. I understand that. But I will take your donations.
Sure.
So do that P.O. Box. You can also follow Hugo Reloaded. You can follow me at Papa Bird Jake on the Twitter machine, where you can see us argue with people over today. It was someone from England said, "Hey, your presidency that's just weird to me." And I was like,
Fair
"You
assessment.
have a fucking queen."
I also would have brought up Brexit. I would have been like, really?
Really,
Like, I get it. Don't get me wrong.
Well, they were like,
but glass houses.
Because once we have a president, they're kind of just president forever. Because it says president in Barack Obama's thing, and that was kind of the...
Yeah.
But
like in a couple...
This guy's been a fan of the show for quite a while, and so I give him shit, but...
In a couple of years, we get to vote again. In a couple of years, he doesn't get to re-vote on Brexit unless they fuck that up.
Yeah.
Which they should. Please undo that. I think it'll be an economic disaster for you.
Yeah, I'd really like to see England prosper, and it doesn't look like you're trying to.
I'd like everyone to prosper.
I would really like everyone to prosper.
Wouldn't that be great? Instead of everyone
Being
fucking crab bucketing this shit, trying to...
crab bucketing.
You know, crabs in a bucket,
Yeah.
they'll start to climb out. Other crabs famously
Grab them and pull
will
them.
grab them and pull them back
Is that
down.
them trying to pull out? Is
Yes.
that them trying to also grab?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Or is that them being like, "Fuck you, crab"?
It's often used as a metaphor
I see.
for that because it looks like, fuck you, crab! Anyway,
Yeah. Okay.
talking to you, Russia. Knock it off.
We beat them. Knock it off, Russia.
Done!
Done.
The sanctions didn't do it. Rocky had him on the ropes. Don't get me wrong. Seen Rocky 4. Didn't do it. Even the robot wasn't enough.
Hugo's cut it out. Nail in the coffin.
Actually, Creed 2's coming out, and that's got Drago's son. All things go well. That movie will solve Cold War II immediately.
Is Drago's son just going to be Drago 2?
If it's not, I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah. Anyway.
Until next time, I'm Hugo.
Jake.
This has been Ask Hugo, number...
Oh, I forgot.
I forgot the fucking number.
Yeah,
It doesn't
there was a
matter.
fart here earlier, though. It's gone now.
The portal of the fart dimension.
It was just... It was like a
it
little
was right here.
little
Neither-
circle fart or something. Little smell. A gas pocket. Okay.
Nightcrawler was here and he teleported away.
Stop it.
It's because he goes through a sulfur dimension.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like Scott Summers. He has an eye punch dimension.
He does not have an...
That's
That's not true. That's
Cyclops' eye lasers, they're not just lasers. His eyes are portals to a kinetic energy dimension, and so is his brother, who has the fucking thing come out of his chest. I swear to God. Which creates a joke where people make a joke that Wolverine, his powers come from like a meat dimension. Anyway. Hey, you've had enough of me. See you guys next time.